All right, so just a reminder to everybody, we record these meetings and they get posted on the town website as part of our open meeting policy. So welcome to our only ever August library committee meeting that I've attended. And thank you, committee members, for agreeing to meet over the summer. I think this has turned out to be a really good decision based on all the things that have been going on. So thank you very much. We have a lot of guests today because we're recruiting for new library committee members. And Sherry, we did move you to second on the agenda, or third, only because we wanted to give everybody a chance to introduce themselves and learn a little bit about what the committee does. And we thought it might be useful for you to be part of that. And that way, if anybody needs to go to a select board meeting, they can dart off and do that too. So I'm Tara Elieman. I am the chair of the library committee. And we have at the moment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other committee members here.
You have me, but you don't have my camera is not functioning on my computer.
I counted you. I have your name in a window. So we have a perfect number of people right now. There are 12 participants, so it's really easy to manage the windows.
Karen, could we try to describe Dennis and what he looks like?
You go for it, Sue.
Yeah, forget it. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm the token man.
So just imagine what he looks like.
Yeah. No, don't.
This is actually the first year that I have been involved when only one man has been on the committee. I think it would be a good idea if the library committee members introduce themselves first, and if you could just say your name. I'll call on you each individually, so not everybody's talking at the same time, but if you could each say your name and share a little bit about, well, how long you've been on the library committee, what your particular interests are in the library, and if there are any other brief details you want to share, that's great. So Sue, you're first.
I've been living in Concord since the earth cooled, and quite a long time. So I have a lot of connections and memories, all pretty good. My love for the library goes back to when I got my first library card. I was not as tall as I am now. And I came in and thought this building was a cathedral. And that's what it looked like to me as I walked in as a young person. I have to tell you that maybe we can do something about this concern, that the very important man sitting in a chair in the foyer of this library was wearing his bathrobe. And as a young person, I couldn't understand why anybody would have such a famous person in their bathrobe in such an important building. Maybe someday we'll get a little sign saying what it is he's wearing and why, because it's a really important historical issue.
He's wearing a banyan, Sue.
Well, thanks, Janice. I taught at the Concord Middle School. I taught social studies for 33 years. My late husband was a guidance counselor at the high school for 40 years. And I'm now living in Concord Green, and I'm very happy to be on this committee. Thank you.
Muted, sorry. Next, I was going to ask Lindsay Howard, who is actually going to be replacing me as chair as early as September, potentially.
I feel like following Sue is a lofty challenge, but I'll do my best. My name is Lindsay Howard. I've been on the library committee now for, I think, 3 years, but I've lost all track of time. Days, weeks, months, years seem to have no meaning in my life anymore. I reserve the right to be slightly off on that count. But I've got two young kids, 6 and 4, so the library is an important resource to me and my family, but it's also, I was thinking about this earlier, everywhere I've lived as both a child and adult, I've been in walking distance to a library. It's been, I'm not sure how that's happened, but it's clearly something that's been very important in my life, and I enjoy kind of having the physical library building kind of anchoring me to where I am, and I look forward to going in the door of the library very soon. I got excited because today I went to go drop some stuff off at the main library and the door opened as I was walking up the steps, and I was very excited just to see somebody coming in and out of the building, even though she was very focused, and plopped something down on the table and hightailed it back into the library real quick. It was nice to see some signs of life there today. So.
Next, Mav.
Okay. My name is Mav Pardee. I've been on the committee for 6 years and will be rotating off after town meeting, creating the vacancy. I live about a block from the library. I've been an ardent user from the minute I moved to Concord 30 plus years ago. And when I was trying to think about some volunteer activities I wanted to do, it was the first thing that came to mind for me because I think it's such an important part of the community. I love books. I love the role that the library plays in sharing resources with people around the community. And it's been a real pleasure working with a very talented and thoughtful group of people.
Hey, thanks, Mav. Mav has been an incredible member of the committee, and I'm pretending she's not leaving. Kristen, you are the next window for me.
Okay, am I off mute? I'm off mute. My name is Kristen. I've been a library committee member for 1 year. I'm also a homeschooling parent, and so I've had in the last year the experience of relying on the library more than ever as I was working with my daughter at home. I'm a teacher by training and a social worker by training, and so I'm particularly interested in the ways that the library serves the community that are more general than just providing books and reading materials, but ways in which the library is unofficially providing social services and making sure that the community's needs that we're looking at are not purely their reading needs.
Thank you. That's amazing. And last but not least, Dennis is well, we have a new block joining, but Dennis is next.
I've been on the committee, I think 2 years now. Anyway, it's my first term. I'm not sure. Maybe it's been longer than that. I can't remember. Anyway, I've spent.
Oh, there he is.
I spent most of my career running libraries, but special collections libraries, the Massachusetts Historical Society, and before that, the Maryland Historical Society, and then way before that, not a library, but the Concord Museum, back before some of you were even born, I think. So I have an interest in special collections, but I have a huge interest in the library as a resource for the entire community. And Concord is just one of the best libraries going, and I've always loved it. And I agree with all of you that walking into the building alone is enough. So I'm very excited about what's going on at the library and where the library is going.
Thank you, Dennis. Perfectly timed, Pat Nelson just joined the call. So I'll ask Pat to give a brief introduction. We have a lot of guests today because we have we're looking to fill the vacancy on the committee. So we've just asked everybody to introduce themselves briefly, and if you want to talk a little bit about how long you've been on the committee and what your interests are in the library, that would be great.
Great. I'm Pat Nelson. Glad to see all of our people who are interested in being on the library committee. I have been on the committee, I think I'm going into my third year, maybe. Yeah, I think it's going to be going into my third year. I've lived in Concord since 1989. I have 2 children who grew up in the Concord Public Schools and used the Concord Library. I'm the executive director at the Concord Children's Center, so I have a particular interest in seeing that the library maintains for all the citizens of the town and maintains in a way that is very friendly to children and their families. And it's been my great pleasure to serve on this committee. It's a very interesting couple of years. Welcome. Okay.
And I guess I should say, I've been on the committee for 4 years. I moved to Concord 7 years ago, and one of the first I visited with my kids. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a little bumpy.
Yeah.
This is a bummer. Dang it. Okay, everybody's moving again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you hear me all that time?
No.
Okay. All right, good. I stopped talking and just waited. So sorry about that. My wireless is a little bit dodgy right now. So I've lived in Concord for 7 years. The library is one of the first places we went. I moved here from England, and our library was the size of the transcendental room, attached to a school. It was awful. And so the first time I walked into the library here, I cried because my kids hadn't grown up with that. And so and the library is just it's a landmark in our lives. Like one of my sons goes for a run, and it's a 2-mile run there and back to the library. And we often have breakfast there on Saturday morning. So anyway, we love the library. I'm glad everybody's interested and involved. And are you hearing me okay, or should I connect to something else? You are. Okay, great.
Fine.
All right, so I'll try to talk as little as possible during this meeting and let other people talk. So before we move on to introductions and questions, I wanted to suggest that, or ask if somebody, I can't remember who is taking minutes in this meeting. Is anyone planning to take minutes this meeting?
I haven't taken minutes, but I'm happy to do it.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. That would be great, Sue. Thanks for volunteering. I appreciate it. Okay, so you all have received bios of our potential new members, and I invited them to this meeting so they could learn a little bit about us and ask questions. I know this is awkward because like everybody's like sharing, like it's not a competition, but everybody's kind of put on the spot because this is a public meeting. But I'll just, I'm going to go in the order that you were in the email. So, and I want to make sure you're here. So is it Mara or Mara?
It's Mara, yes.
Mara, okay, thank you.
Hi.
So Mara Dolan is the first green card that we pulled up. So if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, that'd be great.
Sure, my name is Mara Dolan, and I first came to Concord in 1997. My daughter is all grown up. She graduated from Concord Carlisle in 2008, which was 12 years ago. And I was really happy to hear other folks at this meeting talking about having a social work background. I have about half an MSW, but I went to law school, and I'm a public defender. Oh, excellent, excellent. And I went to law school. I'm a public defender, and I enjoy that work. I also do a lot of communications work, political communications work, and I've worked extensively in state government, so I'm quite familiar with that. I think is helpful. I'm the child of 2 librarians. So my mother and my stepfather were both library directors. And so I grew up hearing about libraries and issues that impact libraries, and the importance of libraries is deeply, deeply resonates with me, especially now in a time of rising income inequality. I think that the public library, access to a quality public library, is more important than ever. And even in a community like Concord, it's really important that we meet that need, and that because we do have the resources that we have, it's important to set a standard for public libraries, which is something that I see the Concord Library doing. And I would love to be a part of helping the people of Concord have the kind of library that we should have, and to sort of, you know, meet the gold standard of libraries, which is truly how I see the Concord Public Library being. I don't know how much time I have to talk. I'll try not to talk too long. I live right up the street from Fowler. I'm walking distance, and listening to whoever it was talking about being in the library and seeing some kind of, made me realize I really miss the library. I miss the library tremendously. But look, we're all here because we love libraries, and I don't want to belabor that, but I do bring a certain amount of experience, a level of understanding of how libraries work and the issues that affect public libraries, and experience working in government. So I think that those would be assets, and also a social work and a background and being a public defender and having a really strong commitment to serving the public. I think those are good things to have on the library committee. So I would be honored to be able to serve with you.
Thanks.
Great, thank you so much for being here. Laura Klein, I have next.
Mute myself. I'm Laura Klein. Nice to meet everybody. I've known Pat for years because my youngest went to Concord Children's Center, and she's now a sophomore in high school. I have one that graduated from CCHS, I guess, a year and a half ago, and is after a gap year heading to college. I've been in Concord for 19 years and loved it. And it's so different than where I grew up in New York City, where there wasn't a community and a same sort of central town and library and everything. But the library in New York City was an incredible community for me. I was a voracious reader. My mother was a librarian growing up and then a lawyer. And just the love of books was everything in our lives. And the people that I met in the library, the story hours and everything, was the community I wanted to give to my kids. And it's one reason we moved to Concord. And my younger one, Molly, would get stacks of books. She learned to read at 3, and we would go in and we would get about 20 books a week, and she would go through them. I mean, voraciously. And I said to her, we're never buying them from Amazon. You're always going to the library, because part of the beauty is browsing. Part of it is seeing, you know, one book and then asking the librarian, is there something else like this? And there's nothing like that human connection of walking into a library, which sadly we can't do now. It doesn't feel the same getting a book out there, but our librarians are doing the best they can. But my background is really different from almost everybody's on this call. I have a business background. I went to Harvard Business School. I've helped companies grow and scale. And I work full-time, which is one of the reasons I haven't served on a committee like this before, because work and travel have been very demanding for me. And I realized I have 2 friends on the library other library committees, Anna Leggett and Christina Blau, and they've been pushing me to get involved with the library for years. And I think as I told Pat a little while back, I finally realized I have time in my life as my kids are older, and I want to give back to the Concord community, and in any way I can. And the first place I looked was to the library, because that's where I love, and that's what I find is sort of the center of the community and the hub. And you know, I've worked in the public sector and in the private sector. I did a lot of work when I was at Bain for City Year and other nonprofits, and that sort of mix sometimes between public and private sector. And right now, I run a business where we serve about half of the Fortune 100 companies and many, many nonprofits as well, with on-demand talent, on-demand consultants around the globe. But luckily, I work from home, always have for the past 9 years. And I've done a lot of work on short and long-term planning financial analysis, and the basics of how to run a business. And even if it's a nonprofit or for-profit, you might have double bottom lines, but thinking about that, and then what are the things that you can do both financially and non-financially, and different levers you can pull in order to serve the community that you're in. And I also do a lot of work with complex organizations and many different groups of people, and how do you negotiate large and small partnerships and really find win-win solutions. And I know the library has 3 different committees, and it's sort of a complex organization of how the 3 fit together, as well as with the town. And that's really what I specialize in a lot of the work that I do in the private sector, and want to give back to the town of Concord and the community as much as I can, and the library specifically, because it's a great resource. And I really agree with what Mara said, that it's a resource that should be open to all, and the more the better, especially in this economic climate where different people are strapped in different ways, and the library can provide a lot, especially when kids are not going back to school in the same way that they have. And they have time for other things like reading or other programming that can come out. And I think the library's done a terrific job with a lot of the online programming and reading and other things that can really help out families and kids and people. So I will stop.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Don't feel lonely. I have an MBA too. I come from a business background, for-profits and social enterprises, so for-profits with a social mission. So we could talk a lot.
Yeah.
And Kathy Putnam. I also have a sophomore at CCHS. Kathy Putnam.
Hello. I'm probably I filled up this form like a couple of years ago when you called me. I said, did I apply for this? So there may be people that are much more interested in this than I am, but I'll introduce myself, and maybe I can help out in another way, even if I'm not a committee member. I've been in Concord for 20 years. I majored in computer science and psychology in college. I was a technical writer for many years. I also taught piano out of my home. After I raised my kids for about 10 years in the middle of that. And I wanted to just give back. I'm pretty much retired at this point, and I have a lot of time. And I use the library mostly borrowing books online. And I just thought this is a perfect time with the pandemic to really have, help people to understand how to do that. I tell people, neighbors and things, I borrow from the library online all the time and read on my Kindle, and their eyes kind of glaze over sometimes. They're like, oh really, you can do that? And I'm like, yeah, it's very simple. And I get books out. I have 10 books I get out every two weeks, and I read 2 of them, and it's wonderful. And I think that maybe that's something I can help with, to try and get more people borrowing online. I mean, it would be great to get the library open again and get everyone in, but I don't know when that's going to happen. So but it sounds like you have lots of people for committee members, and I don't know, I really want to give back. I love the library, but maybe I'm someone who should just help out in other ways or something. So I guess that's.
Well, thank you for being, sorry.
So, but I'll sit through it. I'm curious, what goes on and things like that. So, so that's me.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So Kathy, thank you so much for being here. And what I will suggest at the end of this is, once everybody's had a chance to ask questions, you can follow up with me and let me know if you're still interested.
Okay.
And then we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah.
And there's also the Friends of the Library is a really active group. So if anybody's interested in that.
Okay.
Too. It's incredible. And our last, Kathleen Reedy.
Yes, hi, everybody can hear me, I'm assuming. I've unmuted. So I'm Kathleen. Thanks very much for having me. So We have been in Concord for about 10 years. We live over in the Willard, White Pond kind of area. So we sort of split our time between the two branches. We make good use of them both. I have two teenage daughters, freshman and a junior at CCHS this year, and proud to say that they are both active library users as well, but almost entirely of the ebooks and the audiobooks that Kathy just mentioned. So that's kind of interesting to see how their usage is different. I don't think they both, I would say they kind of hang out in the teen room, but I don't know how much they actually take out. They don't read physical books in the same way that I do. But anyway, I have a background in library science. So I went to library school, University of Rhode Island, quite a long time ago. And did work more in
Rams.
yeah. Although when you're in library school, I don't know, wasn't a lot of.
I wasn't in library school, but I am a Ram. So.
We didn't go to a lot of football games or whatever they were. So I did more corporate library, sort of special library work initially, and then that kind of transitioned more into market research and marketing, always kind of in the area of information management software, records management, archiving software, that kind of thing, both working for technology vendors themselves that sold those products, as well as kind of on the market research side in looking at how people were using those products and how the technologies were evolving and that kind of thing. Most recently, I was working for kind of a smaller research company in West Concord. We were in the Mill building, so I was using the Fowler branch at that point more. But I started to transition out of that role earlier this year. And that's probably when I went back and filled out this form because I knew I would have some more time, you know, not as involved in the PTG and things like that as when the kids were younger. And so kind of how can I give back now that I have a little bit more time on my hands? And obviously I had the interest in the background in libraries and something I would like to spend more time on as I look at kind of what do I do in the next chapter. I am also involved with the National Charity League in town and was on the board there, rolled off of that board in June. And I am currently the liaison for the chapter for the library. I think we actually work for the Friends. So I work with Claire Green to help her staff the book sale, which of course we didn't do this year, but we've been helping remove some of the books from the acquired property on Main Street. And I also just recently joined the board of the Concord Carlisle Scholarship Fund and helping to support the Shop and Support event that they run as a fundraiser for the Scholarship Fund and also supports local businesses. So I'm certainly interested in libraries, obviously, as everybody has said, and kind of how they're evolving toward some of the electronic things that we talked about. Also in terms of being more of a community center, community program. So excited for the renovation and all that that's going to bring to the community. Obviously interested in teen kinds of services. I think that's really a opportunity for growth. And then also on kind of more the archival, particularly when you're looking at Concord and all the resources that are there and how does that evolve from a technology perspective as well. So happy to be of service if it's a good fit. And thanks for having me.
I think I'm going to offer to retire from my seat because everybody is so qualified. Amazing. Thank you all for being here. So I guess I don't want to take too much time. At the same time, I want to give you a chance to ask any questions you have about the library committee. So if anybody does have questions, I'm happy to open the floor for our other committee members to answer them.
I have a question, and that is, what are the biggest issues that the library committee specifically is facing? I know that the library is facing a variety of issues, but what are sort of the top 2 or 3 issues in the next year that you as a committee are going to be working on or thinking about?
So I'm happy to take that and let anybody else fill in. We have a long-range plan to, we've been working on. It's been a while and COVID interrupted it, so we'll need to revisit that and probably do some community consultation. You'll hear tonight we're discussing potentially reviewing the committee's administrative code. I always want to call it a charter. The administrative code, we're going to discuss whether we'll be updating that. Our main role is working with Carrie on policy. But we have set some ambitious goals around diversity, equity, and inclusion, which were outlined in a letter that we wrote earlier this summer that reinforced our commitment and also set out some more specific details. And you can find that. It was published in the Concord Journal. It's also on the library website. So am I missing anything, anyone? Okay. So Kathleen, you have a question?
I was just going to ask kind of how you divide work on the committee. If you do different people kind of specialize in different areas, or how does that work?
So generally we meet once a month. We handle most of our business in our meetings. Due to open meeting law, we can't gather unless it's an open meeting. Sometimes if there is more detailed work to do, for instance, this year we rarely have extra meetings like form subcommittees and all of that. This year we've been just overachieving in the subcommittee department. So we formed a subcommittee to work on our statement related to diversity. We also formed a subcommittee to just review the feedback we provided to the agreement that's being developed between the corporation and the town regarding the use of the library building. So that generally, if there's a policy issue, sometimes if there's somebody who's interested in or has a specialty in that area, they might. So we had a lawyer on the committee who helped us with a policy the first year I was here. So it depends on the issue. Sometimes one person can take it away and work with Carrie. With the long range plan, we formed a subcommittee and had some meetings with a consultant. We discuss it in committee and then just like as a group decide how we want to handle things. That's a very vague answer, but yeah, that's specifically how we operate.
But accurate.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question then about the diversity, equity, and inclusion issue, which I think is incredibly important. And looking at the makeup of Concord, I'm wondering, does the Concord Public Library have partnerships with libraries in other communities?
I think Carrie would be the best to talk about that.
Carrie.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Cronin. I'm the library director. It's nice to meet you. Welcome. What type of partnership?
I'm sorry.
Not at all. What type of partnership are you referring to?
I don't know. I mean, it's a genuine, I don't know. Do you do this? Is this the sort of thing that is done?
Well, we're part of a network, the Minuteman Library Network, 43 member libraries. So we have talked some of the local libraries about the communities that about one another of doing some shared programming. So this might be a topic where we could regroup and think about presenting a series that each library could present a speaker on, and then sort of brand it and market it together, because we share some of the same patrons visiting multiple libraries. So we've talked about that type of collaboration, but we don't have a partnership with any particular library per se, but it's not a bad idea for us to think about. So I'm always receptive to ideas that anyone has, whether they're on the board or the staff, or just looking at ideas from other libraries. It's very inspiring to what we can do. So I welcome your thoughts.
Thank you, and I appreciate your answer. That's good to know, and that's exciting to think about.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and as we work on the long range plan, we've added a diversity, equity, inclusion section to the long range plan. So that will be definitely up for discussion, like how we can further weave those types of programs into the long range plan. Any other questions?
I would just add that I think that one of the things this committee does, or the ways that we help to address that, is bringing diverse perspectives to carry, and thinking about how we make the library a really welcoming place for all people, so that we're, sort of conscious of having offerings that appeal to a diverse and a wide variety of groups of people. And that plays out in policies, it plays out in how we deal with fines and how we deal with the children's room and noise and, just all kinds of things, what the environment is like here. And this committee can have some input into that, because we come from a variety of places, and we do, part of our administrative code is sort of helping with policy and looking at some of those, things that could seem very minor, but do impact on how welcoming the library might feel.
We have a new adult programming committee with the staff, and we're going to be meeting soon with the corporation trustees and with the Friends to figure out how to collaborate around diversity and offering that type of programming. So we're looking forward to the many ideas that folks have and what might be possible to get started soon.
Yeah, and the Friends are offering some unconscious bias training for people in the community that they participated in. They really enjoyed, so they're offering that, which is a really exciting program. And Ayanna Curry, I think, is who's one of the leaders of the Friends, has shown great passion for that area. All right. The next item on the agenda is the Library Corporation update. So Sherry Litwack has a standing invitation or the trustees have a standing invitation to attend our meeting and provide any updates they'd like to. And so Sherry, take it away. Thank you for being here.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, and it's wonderful to see all the different people interested in joining.
Yeah.
Sherry, I think you muted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how's that?
Good.
Better.
Good. Well, I was just saying thank you, and how wonderful it was to see new faces and people interested in joining the committee. So I have a few updates. I guess the first one is about the town library agreement, which was mentioned, that Tara mentioned, that we're in the process of updating. And we've had, so I don't want to give a long history now, but at some point, if people are interested in hearing a little more history, but the town library agreement started in 1873 when the library was founded as a public-private partnership. And since that time, it's been updated a few times, most recently 10 years ago. But we decided that there were some things in it that could be clarified in terms of roles and responsibilities. And so both the town and the corporation agreed that it would be worthwhile to take another look at it. And we've been doing that for the last several months. And most recently, we got to the point where it was presented to a draft was presented to the select board with a public hearing that I believe there were 3 sessions for the public hearing. And the next select board meeting will be on, let me just see, August 24th. And that will be the opportunity for the select board members to vote on whether they want to approve the draft. I will say in the process, particularly with the public comments and the public hearing, and I'd say the library committee in particular, we've gotten many excellent suggestions that we've been able to incorporate. So that's been a really wonderful process. And I think now basically what's happening is the town council, who has already looked at particular parts of the agreement, is now looking at the whole agreement just to see if there's anything else from his perspective that we need to take a look at. So hopefully we're coming to the home stretch, but as I said, it's been a great process. I will say, for those of you who might still read the journal or even see it online, those articles tend to be a little frustrating because they mix up a lot of things. They kind of, in some cases, didn't know the difference between the library committee and the library corporation. They were saying that I saw a couple of times it was referenced that the agreement was between the library committee and the town, but that's okay. People get confused about those things, and I don't think we have to worry too much about that. Let's see. Okay. The other thing I want to update you on is the project. And I was delighted to hear that somebody mentioned that they were excited about a project, as are we. And so where we are right now is we went back to the HDC a couple of months ago on some modifications. We got the approval of the HDC and the ZBA. I think it was back in September. It was a while ago, but we did go back to them maybe 2 months ago with a couple of modifications. When you do that, then their job is just to look at those modifications, not start all over again. So 3 of those modifications were quite, what we consider fairly minor. They had to do with some windows, and they had to do with the orientation of part of the children's room. And it became clear that the commissioners didn't have a problem with those 3 items. And so the third item was a more complicated one. It has to do with accessible parking, because we're taking another look at the possibility of having the new accessible parking actually on library property, which we had in our original plan, but through the HDC process, we came up with an alternative where it was more of a, I don't know if a curb cut is the right word, but it was off. I don't like when people call it on-street parking, because it's really not on, it's off the street in terms of a deep cut, but it's not the same as being actually on the library property. So basically what I'm saying is that we are now taking another look at the possibility of having it on site and trying to look at some different possibilities. And the first time that we went to the HDC, it also became clear to us that that they were not inclined to approve the on-site, which is why we came to the alternative. But perhaps if we take a look and come up with some even new possibilities, then they might reconsider. So they agreed to let us separate the 3 items from the larger one, and they approved those 3 items, which means the really good news is that now we can start the process of applying for a building permit, which is what we've been kind of waiting for. So we're hoping that will go pretty smoothly. We will go back to the HDC in the fall with some alternate accessible parking plans as well. But that doesn't actually impact the building permit. That parking would be one of the last things actually that would, if it doesn't affect the building itself, and it would be one of the last things you would do for the project. So that's why we'd be able to proceed while we're still working that out. Let's see what else. This is exciting. We are forming, the Library Corporation is forming a sustainability committee. And by the way, I want to mention the really important connection between the Library Corporation and the Library Committee is that the plan that we have for the expansion for the project is driven by the long-range plan. So the community says, these are all the things we want in our library. And then the Library Corporation takes a look at that in terms of the spaces that we have and tries to come up, with a plan to accommodate, many of those, those interests and services and programs and so on. And so our space, and that obviously that's our connection to the Friends too, because with all these new wonderful spaces, it's even, better opportunities for the programs that the Friends present and sponsor. So we're all connected. We all do our role, but we're definitely all connected. But we, in the library committee long range plan, it does mention sustainability, and that also is one of course, the town goals. So we decided that it would make sense to do a comprehensive sustainability analysis and plan. And we have hired a company called Greener You, and we're putting together a committee. And Kristen, I think I may have heard that you might be on that committee. Is that true? Yes, no, maybe?
Actually, Lindsay Howard.
Oh, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, good. I knew there was going to be a member of the library committee, and I don't know why that was Lindsay. We're delighted that that you've agreed to be on the committee, and we'll have a member from the Friends, and we have members from the community, and just a really good group of people. And we're just getting started, but we'll be looking at all at Fowler, as well as the main library, and of course 151 Main Street, as that becomes part of the library. And we'll see where it takes us, but it's really a good initiative. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that there was an Article 48 that was going to be a warrant article that was going to be at town meeting, and it had to do with the library corporation and the museum can nominate members to the Historic District Commission. And that's been since that committee was formed, and the commission was formed in the 1960s. The other people on the commission are appointed by different town committee groups. And that was done originally so that, well, obviously because both the museum and the library are very important in terms of the history and culture of the town, you know, it's certainly connected to the work that the HDC does. And also, so there would be some people appointed by independent groups, not just all by town groups. But there was a citizen who did challenge that concept, but I just wanted to say that it looks like that will not be moved. So that's one less thing we have to we have to deal with. So that's, we think that's a good thing. So
Well, that's good. So I take back my accusation that you have a lot of things on your plate right now.
right. Now that that's gone. Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sherry. Thanks for being here, as always. I really appreciate it. And just in case I'm trying to remember the timing of our last meeting, I do want to say here, I think I said in the select board meeting last, but I do want to say I really appreciate, oh, of course, I really appreciate you coming to our last meeting and talking through the agreement with us and discussing our recommendations with us. I think that really helped in terms of the process and made it easier to provide feedback to the select board that was effective. And I think the whole thing worked really well. So thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Sherry before we move on? Kathy, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was curious about the renovation. I'm not really aware of what's going on with the library.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest, I'd be more than happy for you to contact me directly to give you more information.
Okay.
But what I suggest as a first step is go to the library website. And
Okay.
when you do that, in the middle, I think it's still in the middle, it'll say Connecting Our Community. That's the name of the campaign. Click on
Okay.
that and you will get you'll get plans, you'll get, you know, lots of information
Okay.
about what's
Okay.
planned, but I'd be happy to talk to you as well. So
Okay.
it's exciting.
Yeah.
Really great. Any other questions? No. Okay. Thanks again, Sherry. And the next item on our agenda is the administrative code review. In regard conversation. I want to keep it really simple tonight. We introduced the, we sent everybody the administrative code at least everybody's had a chance to review it since our last meeting. And the question for tonight is, does the committee feel, so that we're going to cover two things. The first is, does the committee feel that it's worth spending some time diving into that and making recommendations to the select board? And if we move that that's the case, then the second will be who's interested in being on a subcommittee to do that work, because I think it will take time that we should take outside of our regular monthly meeting. I'm super excited to create this big project that I can then dump on Lindsay. But I don't want to get into the mechanics of the agreement or the reasons why, have a detailed conversation about the nitty-gritty of the agreement. I have a feeling we all have positions on this that are pretty well formed at this point. So I'm just going to throw the question out there. Could everybody who's in favor of reviewing the policy just raise your hands, like physically?
All right, can I just ask a quick question? When was the last time it was reviewed and any revisions were made?
So I don't have it right in front of me, but I think the date on the agreement was 95 or something like that,
Yeah.
the policy? Yeah. Okay. Yes.
It was revised April 14th, 1997.
Oh, I'm off.
Close.
Yeah. Okay, so I saw hands tentatively coming up in the air. Okay, anybody else interested in revising the policy? Mav, I know you won't be here. I can't hear you. You're muted.
I think we should definitely do it because it was such a good definition of what the committee could be that I think we want to really look at that and make sure that it's accurate given what we're up to today.
Great.
So I thought it was just very complete and thoughtful.
I agree.
Could be updated.
Okay, I agree. So far I've seen Sue, Pat is in favor, Lindsay's in favor, Mav's in favor, Dennis I cannot see, and Dennis is muted, so if Dennis is speaking, we can't hear him. Kristen, do you have a position on this matter? You're muted as well. I muted everybody because there was some static while Sherry was speaking. I'm sorry.
My concern following our discussion last month was that we had committee expectations that were different in different places, and so I feel like we need to make everything consistent. That's what I think is most important when we take a look at what information is where.
Okay, so could somebody move that we revise this? Sue, is there anything? Sue, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just would like to be added to the group to study it and decide.
We're going to do that next. So first, I'd like somebody to move to review the policy. So if somebody could make that motion.
I move we review the policy, the administrative code.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's everyone. Thank you. Okay, so sorry about that, Sue. The next question is who would like to be on the subcommittee to review the policy? Mav, I know you're leaving us, but we can include really well-informed former members of our committee on the policy subcommittee. And I'm not lobbying, but I do believe your voice would be invaluable in that group. So I would just say, feel free to put your name forward if you are so inclined.
Could I second that? I think no, seriously, without giving Mav more work and all of that, you really have perspectives that go back in time and are very valuable. And I think this is one of those times when your particular perspectives would help us a lot. We're going to have some new members, and I think that, when you spoke up about what we were presenting to the select board, it was really, really important. So I trust there's more of that coming.
I'd be happy to do it.
Hey!
Thank you. Okay, so Mav has put her name forward. Sue, would you like to be on that subcommittee?
Please, I would.
Okay. Lindsay, would you? Yeah. Kristen? You are welcome to decline. It would be wonderful. I know I have seen emails about your time commitments, so don't, it would be amazing if you were there.
I need to know what September is going to look like with 3 kids being homeschooled and as opposed to 1, and then I'll know what my time.
I hear you. Pat?
Yes, I'd like to participate in.
Okay, and Dennis?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I will put my name forward for that committee as well. The committee is going to need a chair. Is anyone leaping at that possibility? I will do it if that would help, but I'm also very, very happy to have somebody else do it.
I'd like to encourage you to do it, Tara.
You're a love.
Sorry.
But seriously, anyone? And Lindsay, it would be great if you wanted to do both, but I also don't want to put additional pressure on you.
I'll give it a try. I'm a little like Kristen, I'm a little worried about what the next few months are going to be like. But you know, why not?
Okay.
The more things, the merrier right now.
I'll be your vice. How's that?
I appreciate that very much.
If you need help, you can throw it to me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, great. So I think Terry's not here, so I will alert Terry and others that there's a car in my driveway. We are pursuing this, and we can, the meetings will need to be open meetings, so we'll need to schedule them, and we'll need to post the agenda 48 hours before the meetings. So great, thank you everyone. That's fantastic. And I'm grateful we have so many volunteers. That's really amazing. And anyone who's joining the committee will have the opportunity to participate as well. It's also, because due to open meeting law, anybody's welcome to come to any meetings. So you're also welcome to participate, even if you don't decide to be part of this meeting. I heard a lot of people who'd be good at policy work. So please don't be shy about joining that effort. Okay. So thank you for keeping that conversation brief. I know we still have a lot to cover. The patron guidelines policy revisions. So Carrie, would you like to start that conversation?
Sure.
Okay.
So I included our current policy in the packet of information I distributed before the meeting. It's essentially our behavior policy, which we wrote as part of a subcommittee of the library committee. It was approved in February of 2014. We haven't had a reason to update it. It really covers everything that we want to say in the positive way. We were just thinking with regard to reopening in some modified way sometime soon, that it might be worth including something as a support to the staff related to the need to wear a mask in the building, just so that if that becomes difficult to enforce, that the staff have a document to refer to that will help them in their work. So that's what I wanted to suggest, to share with you the current policy, and then the suggestion that maybe something like patrons must comply with local and state public health requirements, including wearing a mask in the building. Individuals who are unable to comply will receive services via curbside pickup. So that's sort of the accommodation that the staff would be able to provide so that they would continue to receive what they came to the library for, but that they would not be given admission to the building without a mask. So I just put that out for your, as a suggestion, as a way to address that anticipated issue should it come up.
I'm really curious, given what's happening across the country. But if somebody were to come and refuse to wear a mask, what is the option of people in the library, the staff and you? What would you do?
Well, we are working under the guidelines of the town and the governor of the requirement to have a mask in the building and to practice social distancing. So what I'm suggesting is that we would not give them admission to the building, that we would give them an alternative of saying that we'll be able to fill the request via the curbside pickup. So there's an accommodation that would be available to ensure that they receive the service, but won't want to avoid any kind of confrontation in the building. So I thought maybe perhaps some policy language in this patron guidelines document might help as a support.
I think I think it would be helpful because the mask issue has become such a tortuous one in many parts of the country. Of course, nothing like that would happen in Concord. But it would be good to have it laid out just so, users would know and the staff would know.
Does the library provide disposable masks if someone comes in and doesn't have a mask?
We have a few at the entrance, but we are not in a position to supply any quantity to people.
Okay.
And
I think you probably wouldn't need a lot, I don't think, but I don't know. Maybe there would be quite a few people. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Harry, does your staff feel like that, and you mentioned masks specifically, but there's a lot more to the public health guidelines than masks. Does your staff feel like that's enough? Do they feel safe knowing that the mask part is in the policy, or is there any concern about safety, in other measures going forward?
That's what the supervisory team identified specifically as a concern. I had suggested it be even broader, just the public health guidelines, state and local public health guidelines, and they said no, mentioning the masks would be helpful. So
it makes sense to me that we mentioned masks specifically, but I know that policy is likely to change in, who knows, a year or two, but who knows what other kinds of systems might be in place that would be the next thing. And so I just feel like if you leave it not as specific as saying masks, but like you said, public health guidelines, that leaves it open for other kinds of measures that may be taken in the future.
Sure.
Even if masks aren't required.
Harry, what was the language? Was it including public health guidelines, including masks, or didn't sound to me like it was just singling out the masks?
Well, it needn't be the language I'm proposing. I just wanted to give you an idea. So what I was just suggesting, just to give you an idea of what we were thinking about, is patrons must comply with local and state public health requirements, including wearing a mask in the building. Individuals who are unable to comply will receive services via curbside pickup.
Okay.
Will the public and state guidelines be posted somewhere?
So we will have a sign as people enter the building that lists that masks must be worn. We actually have them, even though we're not open to the public right now, that the town created that have been laminated on all the entrances, saying they are a requirement. But we will also have something that details social distancing of 6 feet between people. And then we have hand sanitizer as you enter, as many businesses do. So there are so many different guidelines depending on which type of industry it is, which sector of the economy. So we've been looking at a lot of the different guidelines for various things, including performance space, to think about what we need to have in place if we have outdoor programming. So we're studying many of the guidelines, but there are some very sector specific ones for libraries. So
yeah, I'm also thinking back to when my kids were young and small. What about people who might bring in a child who's not well. And how does, I'm thinking of the staff and how, you know, the library staff responds to these things, because it's always difficult if you have sort of an anomaly going on, and what do you do?
Mhm.
And I also think that, you know, we're learning a lot during this pandemic about human nature.
Mhm. Well, I think that the sign as people are enter will also mention if you have symptoms that you should not
Okay, great.
enter the premises, similar to what you see in businesses and other public buildings. So that will be something people have to determine at the arrival point. We will not be taking temperatures. The HR department advised against that practice because it would become part of the records that we have to maintain. So that decision has already been made not to take that step, but people should definitely monitor their own symptoms and choose not to enter. And we'll put that front and center as well.
How young of a child would be expected? How young of a child would be expected to wear a mask?
I think the governor's guidelines are pretty young. It might be like 2 and under. I've seen very young children with them. The parents might know better than I, but I'll look into the specifics of that. But I think it's fairly young children still need to wear the masks as well.
We may need to see about providing smaller size masks rather than a generic adult size if we have any masks to provide people.
Okay, that's a good point.
Are they going to limit the number of people in the library? I know a lot of stores do that.
Yes, that's part of the state requirements. I think it's 8 people per 1,000 square feet. So the library staff are still determining what areas within the library they'd be comfortable starting making available when we allow for browsing in the building. So our custodian is measuring those spaces so we can have a sense of how many can safely be accommodated.
And then you just put a closed sign or something if it's full, or wait outside or something, or.
So what we're thinking about doing is having a reservation system so that people would reserve in advance. We do have a requirement to record who's entering with their contact information for contact tracing requirements. So the most confidential way to do that would be for it to be electronic, so that you're not signing a paper that if it's a electronic version of that, it needn't be, there's certain criteria people have to meet to gain access to that information. And also it's just a little bit more discreet, I think. It would be looked up unless there was an issue. And then after a certain period of time, that could be deleted. So we want to automate that and have it be, but we're still working out the logistics. If we can only have so many people in the building at a time, we might allow for just fewer reservations from that total so that we can accommodate some walk-ins. We wouldn't want people to come who didn't have a reservation and be told we couldn't accommodate them. We want the system to be flexible. So we're trying to figure out how best to do that. So we're looking at some software programs and ways for people could reserve similar to the curbside. And then for folks who do not have a reservation, to have a scanner and a laptop and a greeter. There will be a new role of a greeter at the entrance who, if you didn't have a reservation, would be able to scan your library card into an Excel sheet. So we're getting your personal information that way.
So I just want to make sure that that Carrie actually has time to give her update at the end of the meeting, because that's the time when she will be giving us a lot of information about what the library will be doing next. So in regard to this specific policy issue, it sounds like everybody is generally in support of adding language. So I'm going to suggest that, Carrie, maybe you read the specific language out loud again that you're proposing.
Okay.
And because I think it hit on a lot like what we've talked about. And clearly the world is changing every week right now, so we may need to revise it again in 2 months if
Sure.
needed. But if you could just read that language out again, and if everybody could listen carefully and see if it reflects what you feel is appropriate, that would be great.
Certainly. Patrons must comply with local and state public health requirements, including wearing a mask in the building. Individuals who are unable to comply will receive services via curbside pickup. You can
That's
modify
simple.
that.
Oh.
It's just a suggestion.
That sounds good from my perspective. It takes into account the concerns of the staff, and they're the ones that are going to be having to navigate these issues more than any other population using the library. So for that reason, it seems like a reasonable first step. And like Tara said, we can revise things again as need be, as the world continues to change.
Okay.
I agree. Does anybody have any objections? No. All right. So could somebody move that we do this?
So moved.
Yay. I second. Okay. So all in favor of amending the policy accordingly? All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it.
That's great, Carrie.
Staff
Thank
will be
you
very
for
pleased.
doing that.
Thank you. Great.
There's a lot. The next item on the agenda is reviewing the planning brochure. Carrie, you provided us with a draft of the long-range plan brochure.
Yes. So this,
And this was,
does everybody have it?
you go, Carrie.
Okay. So this, I'm not presenting it with the idea that it would be approved tonight. It's still being worked on, but I want to share with you the proposed design layout. Andy Grayson, our wonderful communications person on staff, created this with our library logo and the template, our color template for our design. And it is essentially Jay Vote's work. We worked with him with the public brainstorming session last June, and he put together this document as text, and we wanted you to see what it would look like as a trifold. It looks much more like a finished product, but I think it could still be tweaked a little bit more as our planning process moves forward. But I wanted to share with you for your reactions, sort of a preliminary design for this work. For any reaction you'd like me to take back to Andy or the other
I
staff.
think it looks great. I agree with you, Carrie, that based on the fact that there's been such a lag in the long range plan and the fact that we have renewed our commitment to racial justice and diversity, it would make sense to table it, and because I think it looks great. But as we change language and as we add sections, the formatting is going to change. There may be changes that there may be like major changes that would be appropriate to reflect our priorities.
Sure.
So I'd suggest it's awesome that we hold it for now. Sure. And look at it in parallel with the long range plan.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'd like to really support that, because our mission, for example, really should, I think, mention something about diversity and, a commitment by this library, which would make a big difference to the town in terms of, I would hope that there would be future programs that would maybe work with other libraries, other towns, to put forward diversity, and that needs to be front and center.
Agreed. Anyone have any questions or thoughts? No. Okay. So that moves on to the long-range plan discussion. And Carrie and I spoke last week, so we were planning the meeting, and felt that it was important to recommit to the long-range planning process, which we've been distracted from it for lots of reasons over the past year. To that end, to just streamline this conversation, we also felt it would be appropriate to create a subcommittee of people, because it will involve some detailed conversation, and there were initiatives that we talked about taking on that I think conduct that work in these meetings, it could be overwhelming. Does anyone have thoughts on that?
I think that's a great idea, Tara. And I wanted to remind everyone, even though our plan expires in 2020, that due to COVID, the MBLC extended everyone who had a 2020 deadline for a year. So that gives us the opportunity to carry this into the fall, into the new year to complete. And I do have a staff member who has been compiling a lot of information for potential focus groups and surveys. We thought we would survey the staff just around programs that are working well, services, things that we might want to discontinue or modify in some way. So we can probably do that via Zoom soon this fall and share that feedback with the subcommittee as well. But I think we are willing to do some focus groups over Zoom like we did the last time. Pat was wonderful in our preschool educator focus groups when we were able to meet in person, but I don't see why with the technology we can't replicate that and reach out to folks for some conversations to flesh out the details of the areas we might want to go in light of all the changes that have happened since we last talked about planning.
With that in mind, I'm wondering whether if you're able to keep marching along with that, whether it might be worth reconsidering this in our October meeting, because we can keep this on the agenda and continue moving forward the feedback and information gathering. But given we've just formed this subcommittee that's almost the entire committee to work on the administrative code, maybe we could prioritize that right now, let you keep doing the work you're doing, and then revisit it in October.
Okay.
How does everybody feel about that?
Good.
Okay. As we've never had subcommittees before until now we have like 10.
T-shirts.
I'm a governance geek. I'm sorry. And I should apologize. I have completely messed up this meeting. We were supposed to have everybody say their street address, everybody who was a guest say their street address when they introduce themselves. So I apologize that we didn't do that. If anybody wants to report me to the open meetings, go for it.
No.
In the future, I will endeavor to remember to do that. On Zoom, it's like, oh, we're all here. It's great. And all right, great. So we'll put that on the October agenda. Go, Lindsay. And our last item, sorry, I'm toggling between tabs. I have the agenda on one tab, and then I've got like all the other documents on other tabs because I am trying not to waste paper. So our last item up for bids is the library director's report, highlight of the meeting. And can I just preface this with the statement, my new tagline for the library: the library is never closed. I go to the library almost every day outside, and there's so much cool stuff happening. And Carrie and I actually met on the lawn by accident. I was able to sign some paperwork. It was great. So thank you for that.
Certainly, thank you. So I'll give some highlights from the report I sent out earlier. I did want to mention, Tara, because we had the guests, we might have skipped over the approval of the minutes at the beginning. So I don't know if you want to do that last. I just wanted to mention,
Okay.
remind you. So as Sherry mentioned, the building project is moving forward. The staff are so excited. There were some representatives from C.E. Floyd, the builder, in today, and they're going to be building a wall along the back of the children's room to prepare for the demolition of that exterior wall that will become the expansion of that space. So it's really happening. They said we need to move out of that area by, I think, Labor Day. So it's the groundbreaking is coming very soon. So that's pretty thrilling. Earlier this month, I offered the full-time branch librarian position. For some of our guests, you may not realize, after Stephanie Rivera's maternity leave, she resigned from her position and then relocated back to the Midwest to be closer to her family. So she sold her home in the area and left. But we have a wonderful new candidate who just accepted. I can't wait to tell you about her. I'm just waiting for the word from our HR department that we can schedule her start date. But you are going to be as thrilled as we are when you learn more about the strengths that she's going to bring. So more to come on that. the Friends of the Library are really eager to do some outdoor programming. Laura Wilson of Be Well Be Here does a lot of mindfulness programs for us and wants to do yoga on the lawn. And the Friends have also been approached by a musician who plays for the Boston Pops who'd like to do a small concert out front. So I collaborated with Pam Gannon on the trustees to create a draft of safety protocols that we would need to have in place to do so safely. So that is with the town manager to review to see as part of our stage 3 reopening if we might be able to do some small programs out front. So I'll keep you updated as I learn more as to whether or not we'll be able to do that soon. Curbside pickup is going really well. We've gotten great feedback. I know many of you have benefited directly from the service. So we're really pleased at how the community has responded to this. The children's librarians are offering book bundles. So if a parent wants a thematic collection of books on a particular theme, the staff are, as part of the Reader's Advisory Service, are developing those to make it easy. If someone likes pirate books, they can be ready for by request. And the trustees just at their meeting earlier in the month supported the staff suggestion that we offer a copying service, so that if people are having trouble with their printer or maybe don't have a printer at home and have relied on the library for some of that, that we can offer up to 10 complimentary copies. So they can email the file, or if there's an article they need printed, that we will print it and make it available via curbside. So we're trying, as we learn the practices of other places or ideas that come to us, to continue to add value to this service. So we're excited to be offering that soon too. At the very beginning of August, a couple of staff members at Fowler have resumed working on site 3 days a week to work through the backlog of the books that have been there since we closed. So they're trying to work their way through. We are getting the network delivery, so there are a whole lot of gray bins that, if you've seen the delivery arrive, that hold a lot of books that they're going through, and they're doing what is a modified curbside. It's not like the main library. Right now, if someone who typically uses Fowler requests a book, the system has automatically changed the pickup location to the main library. But folks who had these reservations in the pipeline earlier are getting them filled at Fowler because we're just working through the backlog. And so once we're caught up, then they will no longer be working on site until we get the go-ahead to open in some capacity. So I just wanted to keep you updated on that change. As of last week, 541 young people have signed up for our summer learning program, which exceeds last year. They've read more than 2,000 books. So we're really thrilled at the level of engagement, even though people can't come together in person. Our children's librarians have just done a huge, wide range of creative online programming, and the kids are reading a lot, and it's just wonderful to see that success and to see the level of support we've received from the schools in promoting it as well. That's made a real difference. The Friends of the Library have been working with the Public Works staff to obtain permission to install a donation bin in the Stowe Street lot. They've been working on this for a while, and as of this afternoon, they got the approval. So I saw the emails. The Friends were eager to meet on site to pick the exact location. We've gotten questions, and you'll see our signage says it's unfortunate we can't accept donations at this time. This will enable the Friends to accept donations. And it's entirely safe, so people can put books in the bin, and then the volunteers will not be handling them. They'll be picked up by a service that the Friends work with, who will sell them on behalf of the library. So it's a way that people can have their books that they want to contribute to the sale come back and as revenue to support the Friends and the Friends programming during this interim time until we can resume the practice that we had in the past. So they're very excited about that, and we are too. And I think the community will be as well. So you'll begin to see updates in our newsletter and communications about that change. We had a lot of facility issues come up in the last couple of weeks. I won't go into the details. I go into the details for the corporation as the folks responsible for the building, but I won't bore you with the details. There are a few highlights in this report though. And I'll just mention the outdoor seating and how positive that has been, and that we did make a modification, slight modification if you visited recently, to include hand sanitizer stations and some disinfecting wipes. And then there are little signs on all the tables just indicating that we don't sanitize them on a regular basis, but that these supplies are available. So for folks to do so if they desire, but it's kind of at their own risk. And that was the recommendation on the part of the health department to do that. And then the last part of the report is from our curator, Anka Voss. She prepares this monthly, and so I just thought I'd pass it along to you as well, so you have a sense of the types of things that she's working on. We've just recently offered this Omeka software, so they are populating some of the files from the website onto Omeka, which is an exhibition software. So more of what is on the library's website will be easier to arrange and to enjoy, and it can be used for online exhibitions as well. So you can see a link to see how Anka and her assistant Jessie are beginning to design that site. And Anka's also planning to offer a new programming series, and she is going to be in conversation, just short clips with various people, including Eleanor Harvey, who's the senior curator at the Smithsonian American Art Museum. The Stillman painting, if you recall, was sent there to be part of an exhibit that was scheduled to open right around the time of COVID, and it was not able to open at that time. So the trustees have extended the length of the loan so that people will be able to enjoy it when it is able to open, which is around Labor Day, and it will remain open until the beginning of January. So the curator is going to be in conversation with Anka over Zoom, and we're able to offer that as a public program that will promote on social media, just so people can have a sense of the value of this piece of artwork to their larger exhibit. So it's pretty exciting what the technology, even though it has its limitations, that we can't be in person, the ability to bring in speakers from other areas to this type of program is quite exciting. And she'll also be talking with local folks too, like representatives from the Concord Museum. So you can watch for that over our social media coming very soon. So those are some of the highlights. I think I might have mentioned last time, the town manager mentioned that he was going to make an announcement in late August or early September about the reopening of town offices. So the townhouse will open first, and then the other town departments and services will open in kind of quick succession following that. So that announcement will probably come soon. And then we'll have a better idea of when we'll open in a very limited way for browsing, probably by appointment.
If you make it, I'll write it down.
So are there any questions, or?
You should even sip it and see if.
Oh, Sue?
Yeah, Kara, I'd just like to compliment you and the staff on the use of the outdoors of the library. It's such a central piece of land, and to see activity there, people having meetings, reading books, talking, it's like the whole library has moved outside.
Oh.
And the activity shows people's interest in being together, discussing issues and all of that. I mean, I'm sure they're only talking about very serious things, of course. I'm only kidding, but it's really a great use of the land, which I think, back when the library had musical groups there, that also pulled people together in a community way. So I think people are learning from what the library is showing how to deal with this very difficult pandemic period of time. So congratulations to all of you.
Thank you so much for that feedback. We're very grateful for the support of the Library Corporation too, who purchased the furniture and facilitated that use. So thank you for the compliment, and I'll be sure to share it with the other boards as well. Our children's librarians just added a story walk down the center too, which makes it even more.
Is that what the stands are?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I want to do that.
Green eggs and ham.
Yes.
Really? Oh, great.
Yeah. Awesome.
But we have a very creative staff. I feel very fortunate to work with them. They were even talking about creating, working with kids around writing and maybe doing a story walk of the kids' original work. So they're always thinking of ways to engage in new ways. And so it's really exciting to see and hear the ideas as they evolve. So
I'm sorry to just jump in again, but I really hope that this is a cat of mine. We have two, so if they show up, I hope that in coming months that we can have, the library committee can have meetings with staff members to understand what they're doing.
Sure.
I know that's happened in the past, but I think it's very important and important for the staff to know how we support and value them too.
certainly. Traditionally, we do have a guest, a staff member at each meeting of the year. So maybe at the September meeting, you could give me a sense of which department would be a priority. I know Royce was here when she was new talking about summer reading, so perhaps you've heard a lot about that area of the library, but we'll have a new branch librarian soon. And of course, Anka Voss hasn't met any of you or many of you yet. She's still fairly new as our curator. So I'd love to coordinate that.
Well, I pass the baton to Tara or to Lindsay about that.
Well, I think Lindsay will have an opportunity to discuss the agenda.
Sounds great.
On how the agenda looks. I feel like one of the reasons we've not had guests in these meetings over the past couple of months has been that it's been so intense. There's been a lot going on.
Right.
So maybe we can return that tradition. Carrie, again, your endorsement of Royce is great, and the librarians have been wonderful. And I can attest, I had a 13-year-old come bounding into my office telling me how nice the librarians are today. So
Nice. Great to hear.
Yeah. Did anyone have any other questions?
I have one question, and that is, has there ever been a program where members of the library committee write short articles about what's going on at the library? And in some way, I know that there's always been a question of, or recently a question of the Concord Journal, and just how we might support and broadcast, to the community more information about the library. That's just a thought.
I just wanted to mention that I noticed, I think in the Concord Journal, I don't know if it's every week or just occasionally, but the Lincoln Library seemed to have something like that. And now that the Concord Journal and the Lincoln are combined. So yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that it would be nice if it were sort of a regular.
Yeah, I wouldn't like Lincoln to do better than us.
Never. We're the gold standard.
Well, they have more trees than we do. Anyway, that's a thought for the future, because I think that would be fun to do, and it could be helpful.
You could put me down to write an article. I've written several articles for the Concord Journal. My kids were in fencing, and I did one about Girl Scouts and the Lego Club. So I've written lots of articles for them. So if I'm not in a committee member and you want me to help,
that's great.
Something, and then I'll give it to you to approve. But I'd be happy to be put on, someone who wants to write an article.
That's great. I did a lot of that also.
Yeah, they print everything I sent them. They printed, so I think it must be up to their standards. So
great.
That's kind of
Harry. I wonder if that would be something that could be maybe coordinated through Andy, or maybe think about how best to use that very generous offer.
That sounds great. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, I'll just restate that our guests, if you could just email me and let me know if you're interested in continuing to be considered for a position on the committee. I think we're going to need to plan a special meeting sometime between, like in the next couple of weeks, for the committee members who can, to just get together and discuss applications. So I'll follow up once I know what our options look like. We're rich with talent this year, so it's great. All right, unless anybody has anything else they want to mention, I think we are adjourned.
Tara, I just wanted to thank you for serving as chair. Thank you for serving as chair this past year. We appreciate it.
Here.
Thank you for serving.
Right. Yes, great job.
Yeah.
Very great.
I have a question. Have we approved the minutes?
I don't believe so.
Oh gosh, I got a reminder about that and I forgot.
I wrote it down that we approved.
You did?
I thought, you know, that, yes. I mean, everybody was smiling. Is there a vote? Let's have a vote.
Has everybody reviewed the minutes? Does everybody approve?
They're
the
long,
minutes?
sorry.
Thorough.
Dennis, what do you think? Are we okay on the minutes?
They were very well done. They were very clear, and I move we approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Aye.
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 Done.
Okay.
Done.
15.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the
Thank you.
reminder twice.
Thank you.
Stay well.
Okay.
Bye now.
Good night.
Night.
Good night. Night.
Up on everybody.